Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, as we are now going to dive into the news that broke this morning that the Dallas Cowboys are signing former Pro Bowl running back Dalvin Cook to a one-year deal. And obviously, it's the first thing that came to my mind, at least, is that if this were 2019, the Cowboys would have one of the most talented running back rooms in recent league history between Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott. You're talking about the versions of them from 2019. Now, obviously, we've come a long way since then, and that is no longer the case. But running back has definitely been a spot of weakness for the Cowboys these past couple seasons. Tony Pollard unable to really become the real bell cow running back that they were hoping in 2023. So now they head into this upcoming season. It seemed like for a lot of the offseason, they didn't really have all that many answers, and yet now you can talk yourself into having some talented players. Now, to what level of degree that they're actually going to be impactful is definitely still up in the air. Again, you're talking about this, having these two guys in the forms that they were a few years ago, you're extremely excited. But Zeke and Dalvin are definitely not at that same level today. Now, I want to start by talking about Dalvin Cook and sort of whether or not he will be able to resurrect any part of his career. Because I thought that in 2022, he was still a good running back for the Vikings. Now, at that point, he had career lows in yards per attempt and yards per game. Actually, second lowest yards per game. But less impressive there. But that being said, he was still fine with over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like, that's overall a solid season for a running back. Made the Pro Bowl for whatever that means. But then in 2020, heading into that season, the Vikings felt confident, almost similarly to kind of what went down with the Cowboys, is the Vikings felt like they had a running back in the wings that could be more impactful or just as impactful for less money. So they ended up releasing Dalvin Cook, trying to promote Alexander Mattison to running back one. That did not work out the way that they were hoping, but Cook ended up with the New York Jets. The thought was that he could take on a large portion of the carries while Breece Hall is still recovering. He, of course, suffered a torn ACL during his rookie season in 2022 that seemed like there was going to be an opportunity for Cook to at least take some early season reps. And ultimately, Breece Hall came back way before people were anticipating and looked like a very good version of himself once again, to the point where there wasn't really any need for Dalvin Cook. And he ends up getting cut a good portion of the way through the season. Signs with the Ravens, didn't have all that much going for him there either. Maybe I was just fooled by a couple nice runs that I feel like I saw him rip off in that 2023 season during their playoff run, but didn't ever really seem like they were at that point. And to be fair, they picked him up for the playoffs, so it's not like all of a sudden they were going to take this guy who's gotten minimal reps all season long, only 67 carries last year with the Jets, and that they were going to have him be a feature back on a playoff team. That's a pretty tall ask. But Cook now at least, no, he did not get a training camp with Dallas, much of one at least. Maybe he'll get a week or so. But that being said, I mean, he's at least going to sort of come into a situation in Dallas with time to prove himself before the urgency of games start to step up to the next level. And again, Cook, it's not like you're going to get elite level production for him or Ezekiel Elliott, but you kind of get, I know they're not the same versions of themselves that got them paid in the first place, but you have a little bit more of a speed receiving option in Dalvin Cook. I know that, maybe that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but somebody who could be more so of a third down back there. Zeke can still be a goal line back. I don't think he gets enough credit for his blocking either. That I think that overall the running back room, it looked very underwhelming, even as much as recent as yesterday, where you look at Rico Dowell, and I think Deuce Vaughn is in there as well. That not exactly a great sign, but ultimately, I mean, you can sort of piece together a fine run game with where they're at right now. Rico Dowell actually is still listed, at least as of this morning, on ESPN as the running back 2 on the depth chart. We'll see whether or not Dalvin Cook is able to climb his way back into a more prominent role. So to be fair, we could be talking about this right now and ultimately just forget about the existence of Cook on the Cowboys. It's very much possible. I don't think that there really is a feature back on this Cowboys team, though, which to me kind of feels like they can get a little bit creative with how to use these different players all effectively and try and give opposing defenses different looks. Now, obviously, we'll have to see about that. Still sort of a TBD. But it sort of goes to speak to the fact that in general, with this Cowboys offense, you feel like it should be one of the highest performing groups once again, like they were last year. Dak Prescott was playing at a, MVP, almost an MVP level. He finished second. He was in the race. I wouldn't say it was an elite season, but it was a very good year for Dak. Definitely a career high and definitely replicable in my opinion. That being said, the other holes on the offense does lead to some question marks. They locked down CeeDee Lamb for the long term. They got that deal done on Monday, which is obviously a huge plus for them because now they no longer have to worry about the idea of CeeDee Lamb sitting out. And he can be your feature guy. Outside of that, the receiving core is not great, I would say. Brandon Cooks is your receiver too. He's fine. Jalen Tolbert, somebody who's flashed some potential. Maybe you get something out of him, but I don't feel great about that group. The tight ends also fine between Jake Ferguson and Luke Schoonmaker, but not an excellent group there. And then I've talked about this before. I think the offensive line has a chance to flat out be bad this upcoming season. Now, we'll see how ready first-round selection Tyler Guyton is this upcoming year. We'll see if some of these other players are able to step up for them. Terrence Steele with a pretty rough 2023 campaign. And then they have Brock Hoffman starting at center, who was an undrafted free agent last season and 2 seasons ago, and he's now going to be your starting center. So it's a very young group across the board for the Cowboys, and I just kind of feel like any bodies you bring in there can help be impactful for you to at least some degree. Still going to be definitely a TBD on what level of production anybody outside of CeeDee Lamb can really give you, but that's where I feel like take a flyer on Dalvin Cook. I don't think that last year, him not getting any sort of a feature role on the Jets is more so about the talent level of Breece Hall than it is sort of where Dalvin Cook is at. That being said, Dalvin is headed into his age 29 season, just turned 29 at the second week of August. So we know clock's ticking a little bit on Dalvin Cook, but I definitely do feel like there's a world in which he could carve out a role for himself. Now, maybe I'm just too big on the nostalgia of this deal and with Dalvin Cook, but I don't know. I think that it is going to be a very interesting situation. As we do have a comment that we will address now. If you have any comments on Dalvin Cook as well, be happy to answer those. But Robert Bruce says the Patriots have some big decisions to make. Number one, starter, I think, should be Drake May. Don't forget Peyton Manning, his rookie season, threw for 30 interceptions and turned out to be one of the GOATs. So I definitely agree. I just got an ESPN notification as well that Gerard Mayo, their new head coach, has reportedly decided on who that quarterback is going to be, but isn't going to announce it until Thursday. Not sure what the point of even putting that out into the world is. Mayo has definitely been a little bit oversharing, I would say, to the media to some degree. But it's definitely a big conversation for the Patriots moving forward here as to whether or not there is a whether or not it's responsible, I'll say, to start Drake May, because from what I've seen, I think that he could definitely give them, I'm not going to say definitely, but I think that Drake May can give the Patriots a better chance to succeed based off of how they are currently built with a bad offensive line, that Drake May is more mobile and more athletic than Jacoby Brissett, that he can probably find a way to become just a better option as opposed to Jacoby Brissett, who, I'm not going to say he's a statue in the pocket, but he does not have that same level of mobility, and we saw him end up getting crushed on Sunday night when the team played against the Washington Commanders. That I think it's more so about the safety and the long-term prospect of Drake May, because you're right, 30 interceptions for Peyton Manning in his rookie season, pretty infamous at this point, but you're right. At the end of the day, he's one of the greatest players of all time, so hard to knock him all too much because of that. I think it's less so about the idea of him throwing interceptions than him mechanically falling into bad habits, trying to play with this poor offensive line, this idea that coming into the NFL, his footwork really wasn't all that great, and that he was a little bit more of a raw prospect to the point where you just don't want him to end up screwing himself up, whether it's muscle memory and his process or if it's confidence-based, because I don't think that this is a group in New England that is really built to instill confidence in a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, let me know what your thoughts are. I talked about this on the show yesterday. My opinion is that the Patriots should start Jacoby Brissett, ease Drake May into this. Again, not because of the idea that he isn't ready for it, but just because of the fact that it seems like whoever is playing quarterback for the Patriots is going to take some hits. There's no rush for Drake May and this Patriots team to press the jump start button. Drake May is going to play for the Patriots this year. I feel very confident about that. It's just about week one. I think I would probably steer in a different direction if I am the Patriots. But ultimately, again, this decision's on Gerard Mayo. I don't think he's done a great job of managing his comments to the media up to this point. But again, sounds like he has his decision made. So probably either tomorrow or on Friday, we will have some reactions to whatever that decision may be. But we are now going to move on here. We're going to dive into the upcoming season for the San Francisco 49ers, where they were oh so close to winning a Super Bowl last year. And while the whole squad is back just about, they still have a good amount of pressure at this point, from Kyle Shanahan and his personal reputation to understanding where the clock is at financially for this 49ers team, and we'll be diving into their key moves from the offseason and looking at their schedule to make a prediction on what their record will be. So stick with us, and we will be right back after this quick break. Do not go anywhere.